Well, hi, all you boys and girls out there in TV land. It's your old pal Justin here. Just wanted to share with you folks just a little story from my torrid childhood. And I want to tell you about the first time I saw a movie. But it's not just the first time I saw just any movie. It's not the first time I saw Breakin' 2 or the first time I saw Jurassic Park. No, this is the first time I saw a movie that forever changed the course of my life and how I perceive film. And more specifically, how I perceive horror films. And that movie is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I first saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I was about 12. And I was living with my mom at the time. And there was this little video store that I used to go to often called Pick-a-Flick. And you see, what you could do at Pick-a-Flick was, or what I did, at any rate, was I would basically go down there to hang out, much the same way Jay and Silent Bob hang out in front of the Quick Stop, and much the same way, the folks at the Big Bang Theory sometimes like to hang out at the comic book store. I would go there, hang out, look at videotapes, talk to the staff and other people there, regulars, etc., etc. And I was a horror film fan. Been a horror film enthusiast for a long time. But there's always one film and one tape. This is dating me a bit. I saw this when they actually had a separate DVD section. They didn't actually have enough movies on DVD to actually justify putting them out with the rest of them. The majority of their inventory was still VHS, if you can believe it. And there was always one tape that interested me, and that was for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I believe it's an Astral videotape, and I wanted to see this film so badly, but for years, for so long, my mom was, you're not old enough. You're just not old enough, and I can, as an adult, I can't say exactly that I blame her, but nevertheless, I always persisted, as is a child's nature, right? And it was a winter, I remember distinctly, and we went to the video store looking to rent some movies, and I asked my mom, can I please rent this one? And I held the tape right up to her, and, she resisted at first, but I said, please, I promise I'm old enough, I promise I won't get too scared, and, and until finally my mom relented, rolls her eyes, and says, yes. And I just about fucking died. Because, here we are, this is a movie I'd always wanted to see as a kid, and Jesus Christ, now I get to see it. It's fucking crazy, right? So, so I rent this tape, and I'm so happy, I can't wait to get home to watch it. But then my mom does the most cruel thing that any parent who has just let their child rent Texas Chainsaw Massacre can do. We go grocery shopping. Because you see, Pick-a-Flick was actually part of a very they called it a shopping mall, but it's nothing like the majority of the shopping malls you would see today. Is actually quite small and minuscule. But there was a superstore, a Great Canadian Superstore, that was part of this mall. So we had to go grocery shopping. And so, as you can imagine, I'm just incredibly tense and full of anticipation. In fact, I'm even running up and down the aisles trying to find, whatever it is that my mom needed, and, just wanting to get this over with as quickly as possible so I could go home and watch this movie that I've waited what seems like my entire life to see. And so, 45 minutes to an hour later, we're finally done, and we head home. Luckily, we lived literally less than 5 minutes away from this particular shopping mall, so it wasn't that, it wasn't like I had to wait much longer once we were all done. So I I rush inside, rush up to my room where I had like a 13-inch TV VCR combination, which is where I watched the majority of my movies. And I pop this thing into my VCR, and what happens? About a half hour to 45 minutes in, I fall right the fuck asleep. I couldn't believe it. And this has no bearing on the movie itself before anybody stops the video and says, oh man, this guy thinks Texas Chainsaw is boring. No. But I had run myself so ragged, running all over the place, trying to make the grocery shopping go that much faster, that I just wore myself out. And I remember distinctly waking up and being like, oh my god, I've got to go to school now. I have to go to school without having seen it. You know? Like, oh my god. This can't happen. And I look at my alarm clock, and luckily I think it was only like 11:30, maybe midnight at the latest, so I'm like, there's still time. I was only asleep for maybe a couple of hours. And I noticed what my TV VCR combination did, and much the same as just about any VCR, it's when the person watching it has allowed the tape to go right to the end, it'll stop, rewind, eject, and turn off, which is exactly what happened. So all I did is I popped the tape back in, and it played, and for the next 90 minutes or however long the movie was, I just watched. I would almost want to say that I'm not even sure if I even blinked. I just watched the entire thing pretty much with my jaw open, and it destroyed any kind of preconception I had for the movie, for starters, largely considering the fact that there's no gore, there's no blood and gore. But what also surprised me then, just as much now as it did then, is I didn't care. Sure, I was watching all these gory movies, like, I was trying to get my hands on anything Fulci was doing, and I was watching, like, Romero's, like, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead religiously, and just watching all the gruesome gore effects, and I remember Wishmaster, directed by Robert Kurtzman, was a big one for me at that time as well, but I loved it, and I was so amazed by it that I let it go to the end, stop, rewind, turn off. I turned it on, pushed it back in, and watched it a second time. It absolutely blew me away. That movie forever changed my view of the horror film, much like, it definitely planted a seed that would be later fertilized by movies like Last House on the Left, Last House on Dead End Street, I Spit on Your Grave, and movies like that is just the rough and gritty nature of these films. Once again, forever altered my perception of horror films, and it forever changed the way I view them. I honestly think it did. It was a movie that was incredibly firmly based in reality. There were no witches or zombies or vampires or viruses or mutations, nothing like that. Just a bunch of crazy people in the backwoods killing people. And I was absolutely blown away. I was floored. So much I went to school the next day and just would tell everybody about this movie, saying, because everybody's heard. You may not have seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you've heard of it. And so I just absolutely, I loved the movie. I remember that the sound of the camera, that was just so haunting, and the idea of Leatherface with this face made of human skin was just was so stark, and just everything about it. It's a movie I still love to this day. My girlfriend actually has a Leatherface tattoo. My girlfriend loves the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well. This is actually her copy. It was mine, but I gave it to her. And just to show you, just as kind of a reference to the movie itself, I wrote in it, not sure, it says our love will survive and all will be left. I wrote that on the inside for her. We both love this movie, and it's become a very big part of my life. And like I said, there's just not enough good things I can say about this movie. Any friends I ever have who say they never seen it, and they're even remotely a horror fan, I say, see it. And I say to you, if you're watching this video and you've never actually seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just see it. See it, okay? Please. Not just for me, for yourself, really. And I've probably seen the film close to 100 times since then, easily. Forced all manner of friends to sit through it and just watch what I think is one of the greatest movies ever made. Not just one of the greatest horror films, but one of the greatest movies ever made. And that's my segment for this week. I'm thinking definitely making this a weekly thing. Just wanted to try it out. And once again, I want to give a shout out to Danny Don't Go In, who, you were the first one to do this. And by no means am I trying to piggyback on you, but I just, I figure, everybody has a cool story about if there's a movie they saw that changed their life enough, there's going to be a cool story surrounding when they first saw it. I've got a fair few, and because, I'm always watching movies, right? So there's always going to be something interesting to say about the experience watching the movie and about the movie itself. So, with all of that out of the way, I want to thank you guys for watching, and till next time, this is Justin, signing off.